Hi friends, hello and welcome to another video by Fermove Jerry's take on China and the 3Ms. Today I'm joined, of course, by Jerry, and we're going to be talking about this fake news about Saudi Arabia dropping the US dollar, the petrodollar. I want to start by saying hello to all of you and remind you to please like, comment, share, and subscribe our 3M channels. We want us doing a little bit better over there. Without further ado, let's say hello to Jerry. Jerry, how are you today?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. Nice to be here with you again on this sunny, beautiful Guangdong day.
Well, same here from the sunny, beautiful Beijing day.
Right.
Guys, this is a little bit of the unusual setting for me, but well, mind don't mind that. We're going to talk today about some of the things that I started seeing a couple of days ago, basically on YouTube and the internet. This news that the Saudi Arabia had dropped the petrodollar. So let me show you some of the things that I encountered. This is a video that has got more than 2 million views since it was posted about 3 or 4 days ago. Saudi Arabia just ditched the US dollar and how this affects you. There's sort of videos that jumped on this opportunity, like, for example, this one. This man is Jack Haney, and it's a sponsored video. And this is an important thing to what I want to say about what we saw taking place in social media all of a sudden with this news of Saudi Arabia dumping or dropping the petrodollar. This person right here, as you can see, is sponsoring this video, but he has 144 viewers, 144 subscribers, and the video has gotten 223 views. This is a person who's paying money to send his message out there about this news. The interesting thing is that who is sponsoring him? Well, somebody who wants to sell something, right? In response to this breaking news of Saudi Arabia dumping the petrodollar allegedly. Even big names like Jimmy Dore picked up this news and he had it on his screen. And this is the one that I actually saw first. When I first heard about it and started doing some research about it, I landed on this article, which was the only article about it that I could find, and it's from a company news. Let me show you Jimmy Dore's screen here. It's from this community, a tiny media outfit, and it says Saudi Arabia's petrodollar exit a global finance paradigm shift. So basically, alert, be careful. This is going to be very complicated for everybody. Yeah, somebody trying to move the markets. Now, what I find important is to have a look at, and this is what I did on Twitter as well, on X. I looked at who the writer is, who the author of this article was, and it's a Katya Hamilton. Okay, this is all. I'm not doxing anybody. This is just public information. And what I did was I went to Twitter and I looked at her Twitter account. And this is the interesting thing. She's a journalist that joined in 2009 from South Africa, has 67 followers, and no more than 43 posts. So this is the person that we are listening to get the news about this huge event. And a very important thing that took place actually was that Jimmy Dore says it in his video. He actually says that no mainstream media is talking about this. Oh, what is this? This is one of those cuckoo things that the government does, that they're trying to cover in something. So I figured if no media is reporting on this, and this is the person who is reporting it, and people are trying to sell you things based on this kind of news, it requires a little bit more research. So I went on to my very good friend and very good researcher, Jerry. So, Jerry, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you know, what you found out, and what do you think about this news? Where do you go from here?
Okay, I'm going to give a little credit to somebody else here as well. Duncan and Ajani, friends of mine in South Australia. The family name doesn't matter at the moment. But I went looking for the original 1974 agreement and found There is no 1974 agreement. What Duncan and Dajani found for me was, and I'm sorry about the quality of this, because this is an old microfiche from the 1970s. This is a 50-year-old newspaper report which says a milestone pact is signed by the US and Saudi Arabia, and that happened on June the 8th. Now, for some reason, people are starting to say, well, it's a 50-year anniversary, and MBS has just announced he's scrapping this 50-year deal. Well, I've got news for you. This didn't happen. The deal was not for the petrodollar. The word petrodollar didn't come into this. The deal was not for oil. The deal was a transaction where they were going to give energy. Saudi Arabia would supply energy. US would supply military, technology, protection, which they supply to everybody who pays them enough money. And they would then recycle the dollars that they paid for oil into buying US Treasury bonds. So effectively, it was just a deal between the two countries. It did not include anyone else in the OPEC. It was only Saudi Arabia. So the petrodollar thing is not a 50-year-old deal that has finally expired. This was a deal for technology transfer, military support, and buying oil in US dollars. But there's not a petrodollar. The petrodollar thing came later. And the proof of this is the fact that for a couple of years afterwards, Saudi Arabia was still selling selling oil in pound sterling. So it wasn't a petrodollar thing at all. It didn't have a 50-year time limit. It was a 5-year agreement. Now, then we start to look at, well, how come we didn't know about this? It's all secretive. Well, it is all secretive. But all the Saudi Arabian government have done now is to say, we are open and we are joining what I predicted a long time ago, Enbridge, which is the Bank of International Settlements, which is in Switzerland, and Enbridge, which is it's a Hong Kong, Thailand, United Arab Emirates, and Chinese originally central bank digital currency. So Saudi Arabia is now joining that. They have not said we are not going to sell oil for dollars. So the idea that the petrodollar is the end of the US economic hegemony is wrong. It's a furphy. It hasn't happened at all. Let me read you what they said, what the Saudi press agency has said. And I'm just reading from another, I've got two laptops going here. As part of the Saudi central bank's pursuit to build a robust and innovative cross-border payments infrastructure in collaboration with various international financial institutions and central banks, the bank, SAMA, has joined the Bank for International Settlements Enbridge project as a participant in the minimum value public platform, central bank said in a new release. So in other words, they have joined a central bank digital platform and they are going to sell oil on that platform. At the moment, there's only 5 or 6 countries involved in that platform. Enbridge has not been adopted by BRICS yet, but I think it will be. I've been predicting Enbridge was the BRICS thing for a long time. So I think that's basically what's happened is there is a challenge to the US dollar. There's no question about that. The US dollar is being challenged in all kinds of different circles. Enbridge is one of its challenge. The Bank of International Settlements is a challenge to the SWIFT system. And there are over 50 countries in that now, involved in that. So we're going to see some changes. But this is not something that happened because a 50-year agreement expired. There was no 50-year agreement. In January this year, the Saudi minister said the country was open to using currencies other than the dollar. So we're going back 6 months and it was forecast. In October 2022, so we're going back more than a year, there was an announcement that the dollar would not remain the currency of choice and that Saudi Arabia would reduce production, hence increase costs. Now, he was accused then, because it was Saudi and the Americans are a bit upset about this. He was accused of being in line with Putin's wishes and helping China. So I'm not sure how this helps either country, because what it did do, If Saudi reduces production, it increases costs. Now, who is the largest producer of oil in the world right now?
America.
United States. So it's actually helping their currency. So this is where it all goes wrong. It's not the end of the world for the dollar. It's a step towards the end of total hegemony. And the other one final thing that I'll say about this, oil takes up about $3 trillion of the global economy. It's a significant part. But Saudi Arabia are no longer the world's largest oil producer. They are a significant oil producer. So the percentage of oil that is coming from Saudi Arabia and the percentage of oil that is being dealt with in dollars is not such a big deal. And I've been searching for days to try and find out what the impact of this is, and finally found something this morning, which we can talk about if you want. You've got a link to it as well, I think. So
Sure.
that's where we stand at the moment. The reports of the petrodollar's demise are fake.
I think that the fear that everybody feels and the need to go out and try to sell something to replace the dollar, or to be cautious with what's going to take in the markets, is that when oil starts trading in non-petrodollars, right, such as gold, or maybe a basket of currencies, or if China and Russia start trading in yuan and ruble rather than in US dollars, which is something that could take place. It was announced a few days ago when Moscow exchange was actually closed. So that demand for the US dollar isn't there, which means that it could radically affect the way of life for the average American person. Some people say that it could be even worse than the Great Depression. But to date, actually nobody who is potentially threatened the status of the petrodollar has fared very well. You all remember Libya's Gaddafi. Yeah, he publicly pushed for a Pan-African gold-backed currency that he would trade for Libya's oil. He was killed during a US-backed revolution in 2011. And just a few years before that, you had Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein, who advocated selling oil for euros. What was the result of that? Well, the US invaded Iraq under the guise of looking for weapons.
He also traded in something like $10 billion worth of US Treasury bonds for cash. And that was a terrible sin as far as the US were concerned. They could see the writing on the wall. This is 20 years ago, 2003. They could see that was probably the first move, the first step.
They knew that there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but they went in nonetheless. And here's the interesting thing. After the Americans went in and they took over and they put in place their own puppet government, right? This whole idea of selling oil in euros just went away and never surfaced again. You go figure why that is. And perhaps this is what people refer to, like Matt Pottinger, when he's talking about Xi and Putin talking when he visited Russia, about the changes that haven't seen in hundreds of years, is the change of this dollar hegemony and the ushering of a multipolar world. It is a fact that today many countries resent this petrodollar system, and the leading spokesperson is none other than Russian President Vladimir Putin. The petrodollar is so crucial to the Cold War that we are experiencing, then the only thing that seems to be holding America at the top at the moment right now is this dollar hegemony. And let me make it very clear to everybody watching here. If the petrodollar does die, if trade just goes away from the dollar and everybody starts trading in other currencies, well, America's hegemony will die. Not the economy, not America as a country. It's just there will be other options, and there are people who are going to go away from the sanctions and the weaponization of the US dollar for options that are a lot freer and a lot easier for them to trade with and to go on and do their lives. So that's the key thing. Things are shifting. It is not going to happen immediately, but yeah, this is what a lot of these YouTubers and a lot of these commentators are going off of. This BRICS is a way for the global south to break free from the weapon that US dollar has become. Walking away from the SWIFT, walking away from sanctions, all these are positives for the global south. So I don't think people understand to what extent it is important to do the work that Jerry and I do at different levels, right? You're much better researcher than I am, but I want to show you
Not really.
something interesting here. I want to show you something quite interesting. This is again from Jimmy Dore, somebody who's actually a very, very well-respected person who shares news. Take a look at this. This is from this website that I told you, this Katya. It says, multiple currencies, including the Chinese renminbi, euros, yen, and yuan. Do you see anything funny there? The Chinese renminbi and the yuan are the same thing. So who wrote this? And who reads this? And who writes this? And who reads this and thinks like, this is totally valid, totally solid. So even a person like Jimmy Dore fell for this. I'm sorry to tell you.
There's another point to this. The other point to this is that it does say not exclusively in dollars. It doesn't say not in dollars. Now, what that means is America still buy a lot of oil. Canada will buy oil. Mexico will buy oil because of the North America. It's not called the NAFTA anymore. It's called the US, the UNQUA or something like that. But that one, they'll still use dollars. The UK will probably still use dollars. A lot of countries will still use dollars. Japan will probably still use dollars. South Korea will still use dollars. When they're buying oil, this is what's going to happen. All of the allies of the United States are going to continue to use dollars. Now, what this does, it means that this is a step down in that hegemony. It's not a collapse. It hasn't fallen down the stairs. It's just taken one step towards the bottom. China's been doing this for quite a long time. And much of China's cross-border trade now is not in US dollars. It doesn't need to be. They're dealing with African countries, Central South American, Eurasian countries, and these are all part of the Belt and Road Initiative. They're not dealing in US dollars. So the dollar has gone from a very, very high percentage, I think it was over 80, to the 60%. It's not yet at the stage where the dollar is a concern. It's at the stage where there is a challenge, there is something they should be concerned about and something they need to address, but it's not collapsed yet. So this really is fake news. If I can read from the article that I pulled out. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. That's the one. There was an agreement signed in 1974, but had nothing to do with currencies because they were still selling in sterling. That's the beauty of it. Let's go right up to the top. Earlier this week, and it says, earlier this week, reports circulated widely on social media platforms offering up shocking proclamation, a 50-year-old agreement between the US and Saudi Arabia requiring the US sell its crude oil has expired. It never expired because the agreement never really existed. It was a 5-year agreement to exchange technology, exchange military, and of course, in the US's mafia-style system, offer US protection. Also, going back to that 1974 agreement, this is 50 years ago. They were hoping that they could bring peace to the Middle East and there would be a deal between Saudi Arabia, and Israel. That was part of that negotiation for that agreement. It was a 6-page agreement. And what a failure that's been. Quite clearly, that's a complete failure. The Americans don't want to have that peace in the Middle East. They wanted to have the Saudi Arabians as a separate entity. So there we are. I mean, it really is. The story is a fraudulent story which has got legs because people want to believe it. This is a classic example of confirmation bias. Here's a story. Let's make it true by repeating it 1,000 times. It's exactly
There's a couple
what's
of things that I would like to say, kind of like before we wrap up the video. We don't need to extend this too much. We've already demonstrated that this is fake news, but there's 2 things that I would like to say. Number one is there are different changes taking place around the globe that are pointing towards the loss of hegemony by the US dollar.
Oh, for sure.
That is for sure. That is true. That is taking place. We can see that those are punctual little moves towards that direction. It hasn't happened yet. We see, for example, China trading more with the global south and the less developed countries than trading with developed countries already, and that is going to start to move away from the US dollar. So things are moving in that direction. However, this particular fake news to me seems like somebody trying to shake some markets. So, I mean, the fact that a lot of these videos are sponsored by people selling gold, for example, that is a telltale sign. That is a telltale sign that, I mean, you put two things together. The thing that I just showed you, the person that reported on this is a person that has 67 subscribers.
Followers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And has posted 43 tweets in since 2009.
15
That's who
years,
wrote the
yes.
article. So this is the kind of stuff that is farmed to influencers out there who take the money, don't do the research, and try to sell. And then it could at some point, because look, I've seen 4 different videos. One of them, the one that I showed you initially, has like 2 million views. Another one has more than 1 million views. It's actually a very pro-China person. So these people are making, how much is 1 million views in just advertisement? You could make,
I have no idea. But in
$1,000.
monetization terms, it's probably useful. Yeah. Maybe
Few
we'll get 1
thousand,
million
a few
views.
$1,000. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
these people are making tons of money, not only from the sponsorship and from the possible cuts to whatever sales of gold are made through those links, but also through advertisement. And it's all based on fake news. This is the upsetting part, because we are living, and this is why we decided to post it on 3Ms, in an era of misinformation. It is misinformation. People are making decisions based on things that they see online and people that they trust when things are fake. That's the key thing that I want people to remember out there. This is the wild world web. So be cautious when you hear anything, and particularly check for yourselves. This is why we always, when Jerry and I and 3Ms, when we post something, there's always links in the description so that you can go and argue with the information, not with what we're saying. That's basically, don't trust us. Go and check for yourselves.
Yeah, check your sources. If I can just add one little thing, I saw someone say, I'm a little confused now. Is the US dollar collapsing or not collapsing? The answer is that the US dollar is taking hits. It's a punch-drunk fighter right now, and it's taking hits. That doesn't mean it's ready to fall down and hit the canvas. If you're using a boxing analogy, it's losing on points. It's losing in many different respects. China, as you just said, China is selling more to the developed world, now the developing world. Now, in all honesty, we wouldn't have a developing world if we didn't have dollar hegemony. That's a fact. There would be no such thing as the developing world. There would be some poor countries, for sure, but there would be no need to have a developing world if the dollar wasn't keeping it that way. So that's changing. The developing world is now buying more from China and not using the US dollar. But what they are buying, and this is an important point, they're buying products that the US wants to buy from them, and they are using dollar. So those US dollars that are going into the developing world are then being used to prop up the US dollar back in the United States. And it's an economist's nightmare to try and explain this. And we're both amateurs trying to do this. But there are lots and lots of moves and lots of challenges to the US dollar. But it's not in danger of collapsing this week or next month. It's possibly a couple of years away. It's possibly 10 years away. I don't think anyone knows. And what will replace it will be things like the Bridge, the Bank of International Settlements. It will be things like in Africa, there is already more talk about another Pan-African I think it was the president of Kenya recently was on the news, it was about a year ago, saying, why should I go to my neighboring countries and buy something from them, but have to borrow money from America? The Bank of International Settlements stops that from happening. So if Kenya wants to buy from Tanzania, they can buy in Kenyan, I think it's Kenyan shillings is the currency in Kenya, or in whatever Tanzania's currency is. I have no idea what that is. And they can cross-border trade without going through the SWIFT system and without using the US dollar. So there is no full replacement for the US dollar yet. And many economists are saying the US dollar can't collapse because there's no replacement. Well, the fact is, it's starting to happen. There are replacements. Now, China is doing business with 150 countries. That's 3/4 of the world as their largest trading partner. And they're saying to all of those countries, if you don't want to use dollar, that's okay with us. That's where it's going to fall down. Russia is now doing business outside of the US dollar because, and it's not Russia that's doing this, it's because the US locked Russia out of the US dollar. They cut them out of the SWIFT system, and now Russia is doing that. So Russia has got huge problems getting anything across borders because the SWIFT system is not open to them. So they've had to find an alternative. Anyone who wants to deal with Russia cannot deal in US dollars anymore. Chinese people are setting up, Chinese corporations are setting up a new banking system just to deal with Russia. If you want to deal with Russia in China, say, for example, you're in Guangdong, you want to deal with Russia, you open a bank account in Harbin. It's one of the few places right now where you can deal with Russia because Harbin is like a special economic zone for Russia. And you can open up a bank account which can then change your money without using US dollars from RMB to rubles or to rupees even in India. And it can do that through Harbin city. And there's also going to be a raft of smaller rural banks that open up. This hasn't happened yet, but it's in the process of happening. So the large banks will continue doing US dollar trading. It's changing, but it's everyone is a step, or go back to my analogy with the boxer, everyone is a punch in the face. And some of them are landing quite hard. This one, the MBS one, is not going to change.
I think the largest punch is going to be the issue with some of US debt, treasury debt that will mature very soon. Because what you've seen across the board is countries reducing their amount of US treasury that they buy, or the reserves, and China is not buying anymore. We saw Switzerland in the first quarter sold like 22 billion. So globally, you see that tendency. The other buyers, like Japan, just struggling with their yen. So how able are they to step in and cover this slack, right? Germany had a recession last year. The UK, I don't think there is money for this to try and save this debt that is maturing very soon. That is probably much more challenging and much more worrying and much more of a reason to look for alternatives if you're an investor than this petrodollar thing, because the size of things, as you mentioned, it's a punch, as you said it, but it's not something that is going to send you to the canvas, send you to the floor.
No.
I don't know if you have any final thoughts. We're going on almost 30.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I can't get into the comments on this because of technical issues. I saw Trevor gave me a donation there. Thank you, Trevor, and thank you all for your comments. I haven't been able to answer them all. I can see them, but I can't get in and answer them. But if you have questions for me related to this, please get onto my channel and into the comments section, and I will see them and I will respond to them. So I can't respond to all the comments here on this section, but please put them into my comment section on my YouTube channel, and I will get back to you later. I've got a busy day, very busy day today, which is why we're trying to cut this short, because I've got another live stream in 2 hours time, and I've got a training course this evening. So busy day. But yeah, that's all. It's fake news. It's
Yes,
a
guys.
classic example of fake news, and it's a classic example of how fake news, as Mark Twain once says, gets halfway around the world before the truth's got his shoes on. That's what's happened here. Fake news
So
has
before we
taken over the
go,
world. Millions of people have seen it. We need them to see
just
ours.
remember to go to 3Ms.
3Ms.
All right, that's it for
Or
today.
Jerry or
Until we see you
Fernando.
again. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.